Well, they haven't marketed the team in 30 years. So, I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, they haven't marketed the team since before Schott Hoffman.
Yeah.
The team has marketed itself for those 20 years. Want to know why?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's as
That's the
storied
only,
and as beloved and as integral a sports brand as will ever exist on the earth. That's why. I was going to say, and just make the point as you're talking, it occurs to me, if the 200 million, 250, whatever we added it up to, that they spent to stay in Oakland in the years past, if that's true, then they spent more money on lobbyists in the last 6 weeks than they spent in 18 years on free agents. They call it the rush to judgment, and that's what we're witnessing. You know, if I want to say, I mean, I hate to say it. I hate to have to say this. I hate to say everything that I'm saying, but eventually it's going to have to be said that this ownership in the last 18 years, by tool of fraud, intentional deception, incompetence, and basic, generic, easily discernible malfeasance, has caused an unmeasurable, unquantifiable impact of emotional, fiscal, economic trauma upon its customer base, particularly the season ticket holders. And if this goes through, I hate to say this, but the idea should be one prong of the attack should be a class action lawsuit on behalf of Oakland Athletics season ticket holders of the last 18 years. And the receipts for the fraud can be brought to the table, and he should have to pay, because this is an unquantifiable emotional trauma among multiple people that I know for decades, whose kids are climbing up the walls about it, who's having their heart ripped out and shown to them before they die. And there has to be some pushback on people like this. There has to be some unprecedented maneuver that says, I need to be compensated for the intentional trauma that your lies put us through in the last 18 years. So I'm going to float that right now.
Sure.
Wanted to say something about something that John said about let's embarrass them. I don't think I'm of the belief, unfortunately, I'd like to be, I want to believe, but for me, it's much as the activist Kwame Ture once was criticizing nonviolence, the nonviolent aspect, saying that in order for nonviolence to work, your enemy, your opponent, has to have a conscience. I don't know that subsidy capitalists like John Fisher, who've been given every single opportunity in their lives and failed at every single one from the jump, who were, if they weren't gifted the gap, bequeathed the gap by their parents, they wouldn't be qualified in all realistic terms to make your slushie at 7-Eleven on the night shift. I don't know that people like this have grown up to be people that can be embarrassed. I think as long as they see that money at the end of the rainbow and it's your money and not theirs, there's no amount of bad publicity that they're willing to go through.
No, Fisher definitely can't be embarrassed. I mean, if Fisher could be embarrassed, his own management of this team would be embarrassing to him.
Yeah.
Like I go back to, I just watched the last one last night. You go back to Ted Lasso, right? And in that first season, she's trying to tank the team. So she gets this bad manager to come in and do it. And there's a scene when they haven't sold out. So she says, open it up to the visiting team. And he's like, we're going to have more visiting fans here than home fans. And she's like, open it up, because she's trying to tank. And I think when I said we should embarrass him, I was get Fisher out of the equation. You can't embarrass him. The guy has no shame. He has no backbone. He's got no nothing. But if you start making the All-Star game or a playoff series or even just a regular game in Minnesota about another team that's not even necessarily playing there, right? Like you're seeing sell shirts at games that the A's aren't even playing at. Just, fan support and stuff at other markets. If that voice got loud enough, there's an ego component to it that it's not so much embarrassment, I guess might have been the wrong word, but it's a bruised ego where they come around and they go, hey, Manfred, I'm tired of everybody talking about these losers, right? I got a team that's a 600 winning percentage right now, and the news is being monopolized by a team that's going to be the worst record in baseball history, right? That might be when it hits their egos, because it's not going to hit their pocketbook. There's nothing you can do that'll hit their pocketbook. because we're dealing with billionaires, and we could not go to another game forever, and it's not going to affect a baseball owner's bottom line. But if it starts hitting their ego where I'm not getting the attention I deserve because this idiot down here is getting all the attention because he can't do anything right, then maybe you'll see the ownership start to turn on him. But, they are billionaires, and billionaires are a tight fraternity.
Well,
as I believe it was said in the comments.
Yeah, and it's not even so much about embarrassing Fisher or even embarrassing the other owners. It's about the public relations nightmare that is a team that is on pace to be pretty much the worst team in the modern history of organized professional American sports, being the front page headline for any period of time, especially in terms of the All-Star game, especially at one of your marquee events that you are banking on it being a showcase of Mike Trout and Bryce Harper and, Shohei Ohtani and, your stars. And when it comes to pass that's not the story, and we've seen the irritation throughout the years. I remember Bud Selig getting irritated, I think it was at the All-Star game, with questions from the media about the A's stadium situation. It's when it starts to get under the skin of the real decision makers in the sport, there's bound to be action. And, maybe I'm a dreamer. I don't know. But I think if you can make the case and you can continue to be loud, they're at minimum going to have to start making this make sense.
Should hang some signs at every road game. Same signs.
Oh, 100%.
We've got fans in every market. People,
You've got fans in every market. There's not a single away game where a cameraman can't point a camera at an A's fan in the stands. They are there. Yeah. And actually, I've been to away games. The A's have historically traveled pretty well, for being this team that, they like to rag on for not selling out their stadium all the time. I went to a game in Colorado last season, I think, whatever the last time they played in Colorado was. And there's A's fans all over the place. They travel well. So there's plenty of people to get signs going in the on the away team. And there was a night or two ago on Twitter, there was a fan from Minnesota who had become like she'd adopted her A's fandom, So it's like they other fans see it, but if the other fans don't say anything, the owners don't care, right? If there's no heat, they're not going to get out of the kitchen,
I don't know. I don't know that there's heat applicable to people like this. I don't know that these people aren't so dysfunctional, so monofunctional, that the only thing they think about, care about, close their eyes at night and open them in the morning thinking about, dreaming about, is those dollar signs and how much of yours they can put in their offshore Cayman account.
Yeah.
And that's really the reality of it. I really feel like it's got to be really emphatic what these people, this is 18 years. This is the slowest motion, most agonizing relocation of a sports franchise that will ever be in the history of the human species.
We also have to go ahead.
If it doesn't make sense, as John and you both are saying quite accurately, I can't argue with it. No one can. None of this makes sense. None of this makes sense. Where is the sense? Show me how it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, then you have to begin to search for some ulterior impetus for this.
Well, that's
and
what I'm saying.
You have to begin to look under rocks that you might not necessarily aren't palatable, that might not be pleasant to look under. Maybe MLB doesn't want Oakland and doesn't want primal drumming before every at bat and every conceivable race, color, creed, and orientation in every seat in every section from diamond level to the 330 fun zone. Maybe they don't want that. Maybe they want nice, homogeneous, bougie, controllable, personal seat license paying dupes and rubes.
I mean, it's possible, but then why do they let the Angels play where they play?
I mean, these are all very good questions. The Angels have been threatening to move to Long Beach, whatever, for a number of years. I mean,
because I haven't been to the Angels Stadium in probably 15 years, but last time I was there, it didn't feel that different than going through Oakland. You know,
It's
it
not.
was
It's
like
built
in
in
an older,
1961.
yeah, it's an older stadium in an older neighborhood that, you know, it doesn't have a ballpark village built up around it, you know, but
It's got a train station 100 feet from the
mhm.
front gate. Yeah, it's a very similar situation.
Just no Mount Davis to ruin it all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No Raiders, no cohabitation.
So before we
That's
started,
another
Joe,
one. We got to talk about that. Remind
go
me of
ahead.
that. The irony, the insanity, the mind frying, eyeball destroying irony that they would complain for years, for decades. We can't share it with this football team. The Raiders are ruining the experience. We have to move from here because this football team, we're cohabiting. This is outdated. We can't, there are no more dual use stadiums. This has to stop. And they're going to go try to get the XFL to cohabitate with them? Really?
Well, part of the reason the Raiders moved was because the A's said they were going to build on that site. That you can't build a park here because we've still got a lease and we're going to build our next stadium here.
That's Mark Davis's claim, yeah.
If I was Mark Davis, I would have more hair, but it would be probably a downgrade still. But if I was Mark Davis, I would be so spiteful. I would actually start campaigning to get those 25% of the owners that you need to kill relocation. Like I would be lobbying. Forget Vegas. Vegas is bought and paid for. I would be lobbying hard on all the teams in Southern California, Arizona, maybe even the Rockies. They're still close enough. Any team in the National League that competes against the Giants, who will now become a major player as far as market value goes. All that, I would be campaigning day and night to get them to vote no on it, just out of spite.
Also, any cities nearby like Salt Lake that will now not get expansion because Vegas gets this.
And that's the thing. It takes Salt Lake out. It takes Oakland. Somebody was trying to tell me on Twitter, oh, they should just give up and then Oakland can get the expansion team. And I've told people 1,000 times now, they will have to expand the league to 40 teams before Oakland's on that list again.
Yeah.
It's not, they're not going to
coming back.
turn around and give Oakland the expansion team next. Right. Especially when you've got people who are actively working in Salt Lake, Nashville, and Portland right now to get it done. But it takes that off. It might hurt Portland's chances. I don't know. And then what do you do with the Rays? Are they going to relocate too and take another expansion? Because now you've set the precedent that if you can't get it done, just move. That's going to take another expansion market out.
Can you imagine being fans of the Rays? They have the best record. Can you imagine that? And they can't even enjoy it because these people are like sharks swimming in the water, and the blood in the water is the public money in any city.
Samuel Vegas, who every time he pops into the chat, I'm reluctant to share it because of his last name, but I will forgive him. But he says, I think MLB wants public money. San Francisco Giants, from what I read, are one of the only builds that didn't need public money. And they didn't ask. And that's the thing is they don't want, I've seen other people float this idea and I think they're all right. They don't want to set the precedent that if you ask for public money, you don't get public money. You know, the Giants just did it.
About that. When I used to fundraise in nonprofits, we had a saying. It's very applicable. You don't get what you don't ask for.
Exactly.
And this commissioner and the one that preceded him, they want to ask. They don't even want to ask. They want the question to be implicit to the argument. They want you to offer $500 million to be allowed to kiss the ring. They want your $500 million. They don't want to have to ask. So that's been the last two commissioners. Yeah.
Benefit in my book.
I don't know. It's not intended to be. Again, these numbers are propaganda. When you're dealing with super duper subsidy capitalists like this, who are, in a sense, I hate to brand people this, but my friend of mine used to call them corporate communists. Harsh capitalism for you, subsidy socialism, handouts and subsidies, and luxury tax revenue sharing for them. That there's really, it's not possible. Like they don't respond to anything but this. They don't respond to anything but the public dole. And again, these commissioners, the people who are supposed to be the stewards, I don't think they care to be the stewards of it. I think they care to get as much money for themselves and their friends as they can make the situation produce.
Yeah.
And that's what's changed in the last 25 years, not just in this situation of American sports, but really in the whole of American socioeconomic culture in the broad sense. Am I wrong?
No, you're not. And with sports teams, it's become like a corporation where you have to have growth every year to appease the shareholders. So breaking even doesn't count. Taking a hit doesn't count, like
Sustainability doesn't count.
No, yeah, exactly. And it's like, so where maybe taking a hit this year to get a World Series next year is still seen as a loss because these people don't care about the scorecards or any of that if it's not bringing them in a little bit more profit than it did the year before.
It's an arrow. They base it upon what they are entitled to. And we've lived through 50 years where this brand of person, this super subsidy capitalist person, has seen their arrow go up and up and up and up the chart at a certain rate that they now feel entitled to. So they are going to manipulate whatever the content and the context of the situation with which they are confronted, whatever it is, whether it's a sports stadium in another city, whether it's building a hospital on somebody's property, whether it's whatever you can name, they are going to engineer it to produce these results. They are going to make it effectively run on the tracks of my arrow is going to keep going up and up and up. And if that means I have to take everything from you, that's too bad.
Yeah. Because every arrow that's going up has a corresponding arrow of somebody else's that's going down.
Way down.
Samuel asks, what do you guys think of California Governor Newsom being so silent? Nevada's Lombardo is very involved.
Oh, boy.
Well, Lombardo, it's definitely a pet project of his. He wants that legacy of having added something to the strip. If this is such a great deal.
Plausible deniability.
Exactly.
Yeah, they call it plausible deniability. The men that have no names. Remember the X-Files when, Fox Mulder grabs Skinner and he says, "You're going to tell me the cigarette smoking man's name. Who is he? Who's he working for?" And Skinner looks at him and says, "Fox, don't you understand? These men don't have names. These are the people that cannot be named. It seems clear." I was told long ago, or in this long ago is it's getting longer and longer, that I was told by who Chris Townsend is, right? He goes to post game and the A's cast and so forth. He told me once long ago that it was, what did he say? I'm trying to remember exactly what he said. I don't know. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was telling me that. Oh, I remember what it was. That the state that entertainment unions that put on shows in Oakland, California, the Congressional District 9, Oakland, that those stagehands, the union, is more expensive than Madison Square Garden in New York City.
I believe it.
I believe it, yeah.
Philharmonic.
Uh-huh. I mean, look, the Bay Area, let's not forget, is the highest concentration of educated people and wealthy people in the United States and has been for 60 years. So very naturally, people get on the Bay Area. Oh, you can't build anything there. Too many regulations. California Environmental Quality Act, et cetera, et cetera. It holds a certain amount of truth, but it also holds a certain amount of indication that real estate, there's no more valuable real estate, no more sacred real estate in terms of a human quality of life that can be assembled there than anywhere on earth. And that needs to be, you should always remember the Bay Area is like no other place on earth and has regulations that speak to that. Maybe some people think it's a little over the top, but that's why it exists, because there's no other place like Northern California, especially. So you can drive an hour and be in the redwood forest. You could drive another hour and be in the state capitol. You can drive another hour and be Big Sur. So, and then you have everything that's in the Bay Area. Again, the highest concentration of educated and wealthy people in the U.S. So very naturally, the regulations are going to be a little stricter because everybody wants to be there. Nobody wants to pay, but everyone wants to be there. Again, very ironic that Fisher, like so many of us, like me, like a lot of other people that I know, they just can't afford to be in the Bay anymore. Rents are too high, yeah?
You out.
Mm-hmm.
If the will were there to figure it out for justice in a way that ended justly, yes. But that's not how late capitalism works. And if I were to sit on here and indicate otherwise, I'd be lying directly to that camera. So I'm sorry.
Was there anything we've forgotten to touch on for this week?
Just get out on the 13th. I think there can be no overstating the need to be there on the 13th and to get a shirt and to make your voice heard, no matter how this comes out on Monday or tomorrow or whenever they decide it. Get out on the 13th and have one more demonstration of why the Coliseum is as storied a sports venue as any that will ever exist in human history.